So it turns out not every trans person is on the internet. There's actually a bunch IRL, and I'm going to recount the stories of the first time I ever encountered trans people in my IRL life, so to speak. Now granted, this is kind of the first time I've encountered trans people in general, because the internet wasn't as openly trans at the time. Sure, I DM'd random content creators when I was like 10 so I could get transition advice, but hey, here we are. So this lovely audience is specifically a video about the free first times, I met a trans person in my day-to-day life, and how it affected my transition, and in some ways, how it made it a little tougher for me. I'm going to purposely make some details about these free people incorrect so that you can't find them, basically. I'm not in contact with these free people anymore. However, I respect their privacy. So everything will be stories that happen, but I'm gonna make some details incorrect on purpose so it's safer for them. Okay, now we have that sorted, let me go through them. So, funny enough, my egg cracked very early, if you're familiar with my content. However, there wasn't that many trans people around me, at least till later, until everyone was friends with eggs cracked after high school, but that's neither here nor there. So the first exposure I had to someone else being trans was specifically this one person in my school grade. And she had a more supportive family, presumably. I don't know the details. But she was able to come out and start presenting femme at school, was able to change her name, that kind of thing. This was in about 2016, late 2016. So the school was decently receptive, so that's good for 2016 standards. Overall, students are pretty accepting of her, which is good from what I could see. Those bullies, obviously, but hey, there's always bullies. There's always bullies. So I was like kind of decently close friends, nothing crazy. It was more like a friend of a friend, really. But she matched a couple more stereotypes than me, so she found a bit more acceptance of people around her than I did. And this led to me, unfortunately, being a little jealous. And it's hard not to be, right? When I was in high school, I already knew I wanted to be a girl, but my home environment did not allow that option to me. So I just kind of had to blame her and suffer. And that didn't feel nice. So obviously when you have to do that, and you're forbidden by your parents to tell people you're trans, I did it anyway, but whatever. Seeing someone else get what you want really stings. There's no other way about it. It's not a negative on her. However, unfortunately, me being 16 at the time, or more so 17, I wasn't really equipped to handle these emotions, and luckily I never said anything bad, but I was unhealthily jealous. I won't act like I wasn't. Now, the school didn't let her wear a skirt, and I'm sure if she was, I'll probably have like, I really wanted to wear the school skirt. Heck, someone else I knew gave me a bunch of theirs for me to wear when I came out. Didn't happen, and now I have a bunch of school skirts in my closet, and I don't know what to do with them. I guess I can give them back. So we didn't really talk that much during school. However, I do remember one conversation where we sat in a classroom. I don't remember what we're doing. And she was getting better with hair stuff, so I complimented her hair. She said thanks. And then I told her it was cool what she was doing. I let her know, because she already knew, but I reiterated I was gonna transition too. Hopefully next year, I said. Didn't happen because my parents didn't let me, but that's neither here nor there. And she kind of disappeared into the sunset. I've been told she went to some kind of trade school. Life happens, you know? So, just like that, she's gone. I knew her pre-transition for quite a while, but it was as if the second she transitioned, she kind of exited school. Which, fair enough, you know, school's not easy when you're trans. But that was the first one. Not too much to say, I guess, but it was the way it affected me long term, I guess. Cause, you know, like she was a bit shorter, she fit more like feminine stereotypes than me in comparison, and I felt like I wasn't trans enough, which, by the way, if anyone tells you you're not trans enough, that's nonsense. That's just transphobic rhetoric. Yay! Realistically, every trans person's still a trans person. It's not like you gain trans skill points or whatever for being more stereotypical. Conformity does not make you more trans. Just letting you know. So she's off for the wind. I'm feeling jealous. At this point, I could use a role model, like an adult, like an adult trans person, to really help me through this time. So I did get my wish. On my last year of high school, one of my substitute teachers was a trans woman. However, I didn't get out of it what I expected to. I think I got some good lessons from it, but this wasn't what I expected, So, I was used to the stereotypical, image of trans people, right? Us being, hyper feminine, conforming, straight, and, wearing these very feminine clothes, right? And not exhibiting non-conformist attitudes. I will say, to this substitute teacher's credit, she was very non-conforming in a very cool way in retrospect. I don't think I was ready for that at the time, and I think I could have been more receptive if I was more open-minded. But it is what it is. This is the story of the trans substitute teacher I had. Very briefly, by the way. She was there for a month. So, because school is school, rumors spread that a trans person was teaching at the school. Ooh. So I had a lot of build-up. People would say here and there, oh, there's a trans person in school, there's a trans adult teacher. And friends at the time would also tell me, hey, you should talk to her and get some advice, which is fair. And I was really excited to do that. And I still did that in the end. But when I had her in one of my classes for the first time, I didn't get what I expected. And what I got instead was a very non-conforming trans woman that happened to have very shaved buzz cut hair. I later found out that was because she was doing a charity event and shaved her hair for charity. So that makes her very cool by default, right? We love charity. And her background was a military veteran, which I admit was not what I expected. And I don't think I've met a full-on military vet, right? So that's just not a world I'm in, to put it lightly. So I admit, a bit immature of me, but I was disappointed. I think I expected some super hyper femme conforming trans woman to show me the ways of femininity. That's not what I got. What I got instead was a lesson in nonconformity, and I think I learned a lot from it in a way that was very positive. She was very confident, she was really funny, told really good jokes. The whole class was cackling constantly. Is cackling an Australian word? I don't know. But she really won the school over, I think. I think everyone was really judgmental of her at first, me included, arguably. Yet by the time she left, everyone was sad, because she really won everyone over. Now, a trans person shouldn't have to win everyone over, but it was such a interesting experience, I guess, to see that level of nonconformity, not caring, and she was confident in herself as a woman while doing these things, and that's pretty cool. So even if it wasn't what I expected, I'm glad she was there. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I did ask her for transition advice. And whether this is good advice is debatable, but here's the advice I got. I asked her, hey, my parents aren't being very accepting of me being trans and I'm not able to present as myself. What should I do? What she said was that I should wait till a giant family gathering, stand up from my chair, and announce to the world I am a trans woman and everyone has to accept it or else. That was not the advice I was expecting. Is that advice I'd recommend to anyone nowadays? Not really. But that was her advice, and I did ask for it. I kind of got a feel for how she was able to navigate her own transition. And that's very brave of her to do. I wouldn't have been able to ever do anything like that. So that's something I did admire quite a lot, especially in retrospect. But I wasn't brave enough to take on this advice, and to this day I don't know if it would have worked. But she is definitely someone I'll never forget. And I think her humor, nonconformity, and confidence in herself helped me reevaluate what it means to be trans, right? You don't have to be a certain way to be trans. And I think that ultimately long-term led to me helping me figure out that I could transition too. And just as fast as she arrived, she left. Yeah, she helped run an LGBT group in my high school briefly for a month, but then she left. So then a random government worker started running the club, and she wanted to do like queer murals to show how supportive the school is instead of actually helping us. So everyone quit very quickly. As a reminder, trans kids want help. They don't want to like be like performative allies and like create like art pieces that purely exist to seem progressive. Instead, you should encourage trans and queer kids in general to be able to have an opportunity to express themselves. And if that's through art, cool. But I don't think art should exist purely to appear progressive. Instead, I think there should have been art that expressed who that group was. And if that publicly displayed, cool. But I don't like the way they approached it. So remember, create stuff that gives you a sense of pride. And what that is, that might vary. Alright, so high school's done, right? Once high school's done, I had a lot more flexibility. Because unlike high school, university does not have uniforms. Yay! So I could dress however the heck I wanted. Finally. I trained for this moment. Anyway, my very first, I mean like literally, you can't make this up. My literal first university class, right behind me was a trans woman. Straight away. And I was like, oh, a potential friend that is like me, you know? That's big. I was excited. I was like, this is my new life. Let's go. Now, it didn't really pan out that way, but I still got good connections with them to help me with transition. We never end up becoming close friends or anything, but hey, it's what it is. So I won't say where specifically, but a fairly conservative country in Asia is where the student happened to be raised from. And she learned English really well. Her English actually blew my mind. And she moved over to Australia to study Japanese. And we're in the same class. And right from the get-go, again, a deal of non-conformity in a cool way. Because her family was obviously not very accepting. But she just went, screw it, moved to Australia, transitioned, and then did university. Like, that's so metal. I don't even know how she did that logistically, but I'm impressed. And yeah, we had some conversations here and there, and I remember saying something along the lines of, yeah, I wanted to start HRT, but my parents said it'd be too expensive, so I'm not allowed to spend money on that. And then she looked back at me and she's like, yeah, but with Medicare, it's free. And I'm like, what? Now, granted, it didn't work out this way for me. I ended up, medical benefits in Australia actually made it a little cheaper for me. Didn't make it free. But granted, spending just like $20 for estrogen was a lot lower than I thought it was gonna be. So, there you go. So that made me actually feel the confidence to go and research how to logistically obtain HRT. Now granted, I didn't transition medically for another 3 years. But I did start presenting more femme in university, and that felt good. And presumably she graduated at some point, a bit earlier than me, or she did out different subjects. If I recall correctly, she entered a sapphic relationship halfway through my degree, and they looked very happy. I don't know if they're still together, but I hope they are. We never really became close friends. or even acquaintance type friends, but I am thankful for that experience, as I feel that taught me a lot, and that gave me a wider perspective of how global being trans is and how different cultures can make it easier or harder. And it gave me a perspective moment that someone picked the move to where I am to transition. So that made me appreciate like the actual privilege of being Australian, and how easy in comparison it is to transition here compared to other places. So I will never take that for granted again. And with that, lovely audience, that is the first free trans woman I met IRL, and how that affected my transition and honestly widened my perspective and made me honestly a more open-minded person. I know this video kind of explains some vulnerabilities and some biases I had, and I want to make it clear that I learned a lot from these experiences, and I think that made me a kinder person. And we always have stuff to learn, right? But I'm glad I had those experiences. I think that opened up my perspective. Now, I also knew various trans men in high school, but I decided to keep it to these free stories for the video. If you want to hear stories about trans men I met, sure, I can make that another video, but until then, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you want to see weekly trans content, be sure to hit the funny subscribe button, and let me know what you think in the comments, and maybe even tell a story of the first trans person you met and how they impacted you. When you're seeing this video, I'm currently in Thailand experiencing bottom surgery, so please send a nice comment for me to read while I'm in a hospital bed. Thank you. Yeah, videos will keep cycling through as I'm recovering. I should be back in a couple of weeks by the time you see this. But until then, stay hydrated and know that you are valid.